Know this. Introducing the original blood clot podcast, not players. Soothing Semantics. Special dedication all the way from New York. Boom. Yeah man, SWOT Semantics. Yeah me know. Boom. Soothing Semantics. Yeah me know. Big ups to the man now. Soothing Semantics.
Welcome to the Soothing Semantics podcast with your host, Rafi Pinsky. We have a special guest from a long, long way. What do they say in Shrek? A land far, far away. So Ez is my Lord Farquaad. And we're having him on today. What's going on, bro? It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a minute. Doing well. I'm surviving this whole quarantine lockdown with my wife Kayla, and you're from a land far, far away.
Yeah, I guess I am, right? Yeah. So aside from the COVID-19 conversation, which is obviously going to come up because everyone's talking about it, I met Ez going on 4 years now, over 4 years. We drafted to the Israeli military. We met there. We became close friends several months into our service because we kind of switched companies, I guess you can say, right? If we were to translate it.
Classes, companies, yeah.
Classes, companies, right. So we ended up becoming very, very close. There were obviously pretty shitty times during our experience, but overall, I think it was a very worthwhile experience. I got to meet you, you crazy nut.
Yeah, you're also pretty crazy, though.
Yeah, I'm a pretty crazy guy. I'm proud of that, though. I like that. Life's short, man. So basically, Ez decided to... He's initially from Philly. You're from Philly, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. From Philly.
And so Ez grew up in Philly, and then after the military, he decided to make what's called Aliyah. And Aliyah in Hebrew means going up. And it's kind of a spiritual term to explain where Jews decide to move from a country outside of Israel. When they move to Israel, they're going up, so to speak, and they're making this upward spiritual journey. So Ez decided to do that, and he recently got married. So congratulations, dude.
Thank you. Thanks.
And him and his wife is also initially American, and they have both settled in the Holy Land. And Ez is now on a journey, in a sense similar to what I'm doing. He's making video content. So I definitely want to show you guys a clip from a little video he did. I thought it was hilarious. I'm really looking forward to more of them. And tell us a little bit more about your content journey.
Okay, so my content journey basically started, I would say about 2 years ago. After I finished the Army, I went to Hebrew University for a year. I met Kayla there, my wife. And after that, I took a year off from school. I was going to go to school. I ended up taking a year off, and just to figure out what I wanted to do. I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life, and I went straight to college right after the Army, and that was a horrible decision. So I ended up getting my certification in personal training, actually. Because I was really into fitness. I'm very much into fitness, and I still do work as a personal trainer. And as I was working as a personal trainer, I started to promote myself a lot online, and I had to start making videos, which was very interesting for me because I always thought of myself as somebody who was artistic, but I never thought of video as an art. I loved movies growing up, but I never thought of making videos as a form of artistic expression. But that wasn't even what I was thinking about when I was making the videos for the personal training. So basically, I was promoting myself on Facebook. I was building up a following, and I was really enjoying that. And I was also personal training as well. I was training clients. But then I kind of felt that the training was a disruption of the video making. I enjoyed the video making more than the actual training. So the hunt and the buildup of a client base was even more exciting than the actual working with the clients. which was kind of interesting. And it took me a little bit of time to recognize that. And then I think about a half year before I got married, I started thinking a lot more about what I wanted to do, and the personal training became very stale. And I'm still doing it, but it's still very stale. And so I decided to buy a camera, and I was like, I'm gonna go for it. I bought like a camera secondhand, and I invested money into this, and now I've started a YouTube channel, and I'm trying to put out content that I find expresses me the best. I'm still trying to feel it out. Like, I'm putting out different kinds of videos that don't necessarily have what to do with each other. So it's a little inconsistent, but at the same time, it's my thoughts that I'm just trying to figure out how to pinpoint what I want to make a YouTube channel about, basically. And I eventually would like to turn this into some sort of production company where I would produce videos and logo designs, because I'm very much into graphic design as well. And yeah, so right now I'm kind of, if it wasn't for this whole coronavirus lockdown, I would be I'd be getting clients right now, hopefully.
Well, this is an opportunity to really find your creative self, because in a sense, the lockdown can put you into a situation where you either decide to be lazy, or you decide to use it to, now that you have less distraction in a sense, where you can't do certain things you need to do, whether it's schoolwork or your everyday job, you're now in a sense forced to just be home. So I think many people are like, okay, well, I have nothing better to do. I'll just laze around and I'll wait until things get back to normal. And I think for a minority of people, they're saying, okay, well, this is an opportunity for me to decide, if I want to go back to my job, if I can. Do I want to do something completely different? Do I have a side hustle I didn't get around to? Should I start exercising at home? Which I haven't been doing, unfortunately. I got to get back on that. But this is an opportunity to really take your mind on an adventure, so to speak. And it seems like you're doing that and you're taking advantage of that. Based on the video you just put out with Kayla, you're taking advantage of your time. And I obviously hope that you become very successful in what you're doing, because you're passionate about it. And I think you naturally have this skill for it. I don't think it's something that, obviously it's going to take work, the same way it'll take work for me. But I think you have a natural skill for it. It comes naturally to you, especially the comedy. So as far as like the niche goes, I was also thinking about doing the podcast to talk about having the podcast about one specific topic. But I realized I have certain, I guess you can call them skills or character traits, where I don't want to stick to one specific topic, because if the topic is too serious, I'll want to throw some more comedy. If the topic is very comedic, I might want to be serious, and that's fine. I can do that sticking to one niche, but I'm 26. I don't feel I have enough knowledge on a particular subject to only talk about that subject. That's the reality of it. There are a lot of people a lot older than me that may respect what I have to say, but I don't feel that confident discussing one particular subject. So I have a lot to say. I have a lot to learn, and I like to have all different kinds of guests who have different information, different things that interest them, different hobbies, different professions, and I can build off of all these different things and hopefully really have a wider range of conversation. And that's just my preference. So as far as you're going, I don't think you necessarily should stick to one particular thing. I think you may end up finding a few subjects that interest you more than others, but I would just let it flow, and not think too much about what you're going to do. I think over time you'll gain the confidence to record your videos. You'll gain the confidence to be funny. I mean, I think you're already very confident in that matter. But the more you do it, the more you focus on it, the more content you put out, the more ideas will come, because you'll start to see yourself as I'm as the video editor, I'm as the content creator. And once you start to title yourself as that person, it'll become more of a consistent thing, and I'm seeing that for myself. I'm not preaching, dude. I'm also new to this as well. So that's just my feeling of it. So many people just don't allow themselves to be that person, to be in that space. The same way, we both went to the military, so we were soldiers at that point. we started that journey. Over time, we were given that title where you can say you were a self-proclaimed soldier, whatever you want to call it. We did that. We went and did that. We're then therefore soldiers. The same way you're starting to create content or make videos, you are therefore a content creator, video editor, video maker. So I think a really important thing is simply starting and then seeing where it goes and then being consistent. It's all redundant. I don't think anyone's like, wow, that's profound. But you know what I mean? But it's kind of the thing that people hear all the time, but don't necessarily, these things don't come to fruition because they just sit on their couch, especially during the virus, and they're like, oh, well, it'll just happen someday. It'll happen someday.
Yeah, and on that point, I've always had this like mindset, because everyone says that. You're right. Everyone's like, yeah, it'll just happen. And I'm listening to I listen to a lot of podcasts also, and they talk a lot about like waiting for opportunities to happen, where they're like, oh, putting out content, I'm not getting anything back. Nobody's like hiring me to make videos or to make designs for them. And I don't know, like I made a video like a month and a half ago about myself going around the local market in Jerusalem and just asking people like, hey, can I make you a free video? Hey, can I make you a free video? And it wasn't like they wouldn't have known who I was before that. And I didn't have those opportunities. I wouldn't have had those opportunities if I didn't push myself to go out there. So like I made an opportunity happen versus waiting for it to come, which I feel like is very interesting also that you're talking about this, because instead of, like you invited me onto the podcast and you initiated this. So like you're not waiting for me to be, hey, can I come on? You initiated it to me. And that's also something that I see in you. Like you're also pushing yourself and forcing an opportunity to happen, because again, it's a snowball effect. You one opportunity leads to another, but somebody has to start that first one.
Absolutely. I think I couldn't agree more. And it gives me a lot to explain as far as the opportunities kind of compounding. Because when you don't have a name, I'm not a famous guy, you're not a famous guy. We may put out an episode or a video that gets tons of views or tons of followers. People might just love the content you put out. When I'm talking about one specific video, or it may take you 3 years before people start to notice you. But if you aren't consistent and you don't have that belief in yourself, it isn't going to go anywhere. So you initially, if you aren't already an actor or a famous doctor, whatever the case may be, you're just an average Joe, so to speak, you're going to initially have to really get yourself out there. And once you get yourself out there and remain consistent, you do so in the hope that someone will notice you that does have something of value to bring, where you can collaborate and then platform or catapult yourself into a world of opportunity where other people will start to notice you. And before you know it, you no longer have to put as much emphasis on kind of going on the offense, where you can kind of sit back more. And it doesn't mean you won't have to put in work, but you can kind of relax more and people will start to notice what you have to offer. And you can therefore kind of just, you're in a sense trading your experience, your knowledge, your expertise. And that's where a lot of the time people don't even realize. They kind of go, oh, well, he just got lucky. It's like, no, you just didn't realize all the things that the person did in the beginning, where they had to kind of push themselves. And then now, after they've been recognized, they now have a following, or they now have those connections. And that all really comes down to A, starting, and B, continuing.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. But that brings me back to the idea of consistency and choosing a niche, though, when it comes to content creating. Because let's say, okay, so the last video I made, you said you enjoyed it. A lot of people have. I got some great feedback by it, and I'm really proud of it.
I loved it, by the way. I just want to say that it was awesome. I plan on. I do want to. I don't know how you want to connect it. Do you want to do a link? Should I just announce? It's funny that we're doing this now. We could have discussed this earlier.
I know.
Who cares, man? It's natural. I'm just gonna give you a little rundown. Ez made a hilarious video with his wife, where he was kind of doing a parody of an athlete specifically. You mentioned one athlete, but there have been a couple of athletes that kind of did like triathlons or marathons in their apartment, where they ran back and forth in their apartment a bunch of times. And Ez wasn't making fun of them in any way. He completely respects what they're doing, but he decided to make like this funny parody of that. So he made believe he was like a triathlete, and his wife was helping him train for it. And I don't want to ruin it for you guys, but I think it was very, very creative. Like I loved it, dude. Especially the video editing. Like it was awesome, dude. I'm really
Thank you.
Yeah. So how do you want me to kind of share this with the peoples?
We could put in the description below. If you want to you could do like the whole link on the top of the video. They also
can also put in a little clip if you want.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, I could put in a clip.
Definitely
for sure.
Put in a little old teaser.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
We could do that for sure. But basically, so back to that video, I had some great responses. Everyone gave me great feedback. I was hearing about it from like people in Israel were like, "Yo, my cousin sent this to me from New York," and I'm like, "Yo, that's amazing! Like, how did it get that far?" I mean, I posted it every Facebook group I know in America, everywhere. So it got very far, and that was a lot of fun. Also, trying to like distribute it. I was like calling up news stations, but none of them got back to me. And like that did really well. I got like 2,500 views in a few days, which is like for me that's viral because my other videos were getting a couple hundred over a month. You know, that was like nothing. So that was a lot of fun for me, and it really got me thinking like, what kind of videos? Like, that got a really good response, but it was fun, and everyone was like, "Thanks so much for the laugh. It was great." But that doesn't like I don't feel satisfied
because you didn't get enough yet. I didn't
get enough yet, but also like I have so much more in my head going on. Like I'm more often writing like deep thoughts in a script than writing like a funny video. But like I can write funny lines in a deep video, you know? So like I don't know, I've been leaning more towards like the habit change kind of thing, or even like beginner filmmaking kind of thing, or mixing those two because a lot of times those go together. And comedy videos also, but like the thing is like what I was trying to get at before is when you make videos like that, they're most of the time for like the views. You want to get traffic to your channel, you make those kind of videos like to go viral, to get people to notice you. But to keep like subscribers and to build your subscriber base and to keep them happy with whatever you're putting out, like you got to put something specific, because I'm not going to subscribe to somebody who puts out videos about cooking, but they put out one funny video that went viral and I enjoyed it, but I'm not going to subscribe to the rest of their videos. So I don't know, I find that very, it's like you're at like a crossroads. You don't really know what to do. That's how I see it.
Well, I think, if I can interject, from what I've noticed about the people who do very well, there are a lot of factors. One of the factors is being natural. When it doesn't look forced and people see you genuinely enjoy it, it's a lot more appealing to people because they don't think you're necessarily in it for any sort of ulterior motive, but you genuinely do it. It's something that you are passionate about, you enjoy it, it's something you that brings your personality out into the open, so to speak, and people can sense that. Their intuition tells them, okay, well, this guy Ez really loves what he does. They'll be a lot more inclined to go and watch those videos. But also, it's you know, quantity is a thing. Quality is vital, but quantity is a thing. If you only have like 3 videos, they're going to be like, okay, well, where are the others? So if you have a lot of content, even if people don't like all of the videos you post, I'm sure they're going to like a bunch. And the more you do it and the more you realize which videos have more views, you can then kind of dissect them and say, okay, well, these videos are getting a lot more views. The style of the video seems appealing to people. I'm going to try to not necessarily copy the video, but do things that are similar to the way I made that video. And then you start to become better and better and better and better. And like I said, it's so much easier said than done, dude, because it's not like I'm doing it and I'm preaching. I'm some big content video maker. But just from my perception of what these people do, that's kind of what brings them value. So for what I think you can take this very far. It's just a matter of making a lot of content. And I think also with the serious videos, with the intense videos, if you're doing an intense video or a dramatic video, maybe just throw the comedy in there so people can see that you want to share a serious and important message. But if you can throw some comedy in there, they'll be, people have a short attention spans, and if you can kind of make them laugh, they'll be like, oh wow, that's really funny, but he makes a good point.
Right, yeah. I've been like trying to figure that out. Like I've been writing scripts all day, and like one of the scripts I wrote starts off with a skit in the beginning, and then it goes into like the habit or the like mindset I want to kind of promote. So, but the skit in the beginning would be like a comedic skit where it's like, I start off by, it's basically, I want to learn how to I'm learning motion graphics. So I wanted to incorporate some motion graphics into my next video, where it would be, like I'm sitting at like a coffee house, but it's really in the apartment, and it's obvious we're in the apartment because we're in quarantine. And Kayla's on the other side of the coffee house, and I notice her from across the room, and I'm texting my friend like, "Yo, dude, like she's back," and he's like, "Who?" And I'm like, "This girl," and I'm like, "At the coffee house." Like, "Dude, there's no coffee houses open. It's like we're in quarantine." And then it's like, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "Who are you talking about?" I'm like, "Dude, she's your wife. Just go talk to her. What the hell are you like?" And then he's like, "Just leave me alone." I don't want to get into the whole thing, but like I'm trying to be as comedic as possible in the beginning, and then that whole thing will go into like confidence and how to develop a confident like mindset, and how confidence affects motivation, and what's more important, motivation or confidence, like that whole thing. Like that's important. That's a huge thing in my life. Like I'm very motivated. I have no problem with motivation, but sometimes confidence can screw that up. And I'm sure that happens to everybody. So like that's something that people can enjoy, but also a good laugh in the beginning,
100%. I think that sometimes comedy delivers the best message because it's subtle. Some people don't respond so well to something too intense because they think it's too intense. So sometimes I find ironic, and I don't know if it's ironic, but I guess it is. Sometimes some of these comedians will share something that sounds strictly comedic, but the message behind it is so intense that people, they laugh from it, but then they go, wow, that's so true. Like Chris Rock does that a lot. There are a lot of comedians, Louis C.K. all the time. He'll say the most hilarious shit, but it has such a deep message behind it. And I personally have really gotten things from it. I'm like, wow, he makes such a good point. And because it's not so intense and preachy, but it's very laid back, it can sometimes cater to a lot more people, because not everyone wants to be like shoved some kind of intense message. You gotta do it, and you gotta blah, 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 blah. It's like, you're a lazy asshole. And they're like, wow, I am a lazy asshole. You know what I mean? Like it's, and they just, like Louis C.K. did a bit like a long time ago where he was talking about how people are so impatient with their phones. I love this one. You can find this one online. And people are like, oh, well, this isn't fast enough, a slow phone. He's like, well, maybe you should wait a minute because it's got to go to space and back. And he was, and he was kind of explaining how like we have things so good and we just complain about it. And the way he delivered the message, first it cracked me up, but then it kind of put things into perspective for me. And I was like, wow, that's a good point. This phone does practically everything I need it to do. And he's like, chillax, dude. And he goes into that a lot, where he kind of makes fun of people, nature, society, and he kind of just goes, "You guys are all nuts. Chill," And, huh? Yeah, no, and he just. So that's why I'm saying sometimes incorporating comedy can actually help deliver the message in a subtle way, which then gives people that relation to it, where they feel they can relate to it because you're being a lot more of a relaxed, funny guy, as opposed to this person who is wearing a suit and just pointing your finger at them.
That's really interesting. I didn't think about it that way at all. Like I was thinking like the sketch will be in the beginning, like funny, like you get a good laugh, pull them in, the whole like setup, and then the serious video afterwards. But I guess it also comes down to your personality. Like if you're gonna be conveying it in a serious way, it's gonna be a serious video. But if I'm throwing in like, I don't know, like another video I'm writing is about like, I'm trying to also figure out how to do this because I have to figure out how to make it work with what I'm doing. It's basically it's filmmaking for dummies by a dummy. So like I'm the dummy and I'm learning it and I'm teaching it as I'm learning it. So like, because you only get like the best perspective on how to begin something is when you're beginning. You know, like it's kind of like I'm documenting my journey on how to learn how to be a filmmaker instead of I'm not going to learn from like this from filmmakers like Peter McKinnon, like all these different YouTubers who make like great videos. They're not explaining it on my level. Like I'm not understanding what they're saying. They're so good they can't explain it anymore. But if I'm still in this mindset where like, okay, I'm kind of dumb it down for myself, I could dumb it down for other people.
I think that's actually terrific. I don't think enough people do that. I think in a way there are a lot of like YouTube tutorials to do things, but I do completely agree that a lot of the people giving these tutorials are so much more advanced than the people they're teaching, and they kind of forget that they need to baby it. They need to baby it to people because people really don't get it, and people get flustered by the level of expertise that these people giving the tutorials have, and they don't feel like they can relate to it. It works that way with business mentors or these gurus or relationship experts. They have such a level of confidence and know-how that the people listening kind of get flustered and early on, and they're like, I don't need this guy is too it's too much. I need to learn from the beginning, and they're so scared to learn the basics, they just kind of shut it out. So if you're documenting your whole journey from the beginning, it'll give people that sense of, well, I can relate to this Ez guy because he's showing me his journey. He's showing me how he didn't just know how to do it from the get-go. He had to learn it. And people know that you have to start from somewhere, but it's hard for them to really grasp that concept. So like, yeah, dude, I think that's awesome. Like I'm honestly going to look at it cuz I'm almost like I don't have much experience with it.
Neither do I. That's the whole idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's cool. I thought of it like the other day, and then I actually heard someone talking about it, and then I was like, okay, if that's like a thing for somebody, then like maybe I can make it. So I wrote like the script and everything, and I was like, it's an informative. I'm trying to educate and give some value over, but like I threw in like I'm explaining the how what is what is storytelling. That's like the basis of all filmmaking, right? Like what is storytelling? So it's the setup, the conflict, and the resolution. It's the three act structure. So I was just like, okay, what's an example of a 3-act structure? You wake up, you need to put on a pair of pants, you can't find your pants, you'll live your life without wearing pants. Like that's like the 3-act structure. So like, I don't know, just kind of throw in like comedy, but also educate at the same time. I don't know, it's just something I'm trying to figure out, and also I have a lot of time to think about it because we're stuck in quarantine.
You should do another video of you walking through the market without pants.
That's it, done. 30 seconds.
It would work though, dude. I'd watch that. I'd watch that like crazy. Yeah, I would enjoy that. See, if we were living in the same country, I would join you. We'd just not wear pants together.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be so much fun. You wouldn't wear pants, I wouldn't wear a shirt, and we'd just be a fully clothed person.
Perfect. Would you be able? And you can maybe like Photoshop us just merge us into one person.
We could do that. We could do that. One beard. Well, you have a better beard than me, so you can have the beard.
Oh, stop it.
And if I remember properly, your calves are way better than mine.
My calves? No, I don't. I have skinny baby calves.
What? You told me. I remember on base. I said once, like, Rafi, your calves are amazing. You're like, yeah, I put a lot of work into them.
I don't think I have nice calves though. I don't know when I said that. I appreciate that.
Of course, yeah. I think it was like 3 a.m. So like either way.
Maybe it could have been someone else's.
Maybe.
I don't know. We spent a lot of time together.
We did, yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of good times in the Army. A lot of horrible times, but a lot of good times.
Yeah, some of the worst and best days of my life. There really were some incredible days. It's a weird time, dude. It's a weird time. I'm so used to... What did you say?
I haven't really been thinking about it that much, but recently I've been like thinking about... I don't know, like sometimes I've just been getting like flashbacks, which is weird.
What kind of flashbacks?
Just like Army, just like, I don't know, like just every time we go to like a raid or any kind of like arrest or something, I would just get like, I don't know, I'll just watch like a TV show or something and it would just remind me of something. And then I'd just be like, ah. And I get a little bit of a panic attack and then it goes away, which is, I don't know, it's pretty crazy to think about. Sorry to dampen the mood.
Oh, no. I mean, it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Because there's no like, I was talking to a friend of mine also about it, and he was saying, like, we were both agreeing that there's no like, they initiate you into the army, but they don't initiate you out of the army at all.
They try to.
They tried to, but like they're willing to break you 10 times more than they're willing to build you back up at the end.
Well, I guess they kind of hope that you've been broken and built up enough throughout the experience that you can kind of mentally and physically figure it out afterwards.
Yeah, that's a hope. I don't know.
I mean, some people don't, but the reality is we don't have any major PTSD. I mean, for me personally, it was a culture shock when I went back to New York and I went back and did my last year of college. Sitting in a classroom was so strange. So strange. And I still had that mentality where I was kind of scanning everyone. And I sat in the classroom and I was very antsy. It was hard for me to sit in the room. And I was just listening to a professor. I was tuning half of it out. It took me a few weeks to really get back into it. And I was just kind of like hoping I can put like all my gear back on and just run out of the class and something intense would happen. Like I kept having that like kind of like, I was in like that risk mode. Is something gonna light on fire outside? Is a car gonna drive into a ditch? I was like, yeah, you know, and she's like, open your book to page 262. I was like, you know,
Like you have that need for like adrenaline.
yeah, it was insane. Yeah, it was pent up, and I had no way to get it out, and it was so, and I was waiting for class to be over. Truthfully, I had that feeling a lot in college before the army, but so much more so afterwards. And I'm glad I only had a year left because I don't know how I would have done like another 4 years after. You know, most of the guys had to do that. I don't know how I would have done another 4 years. Because as much as we did have downtime in the army. When we didn't, like when we had to do things, it was so intense. And going back to civilian life, you don't have that intensity.
Right. No, it's completely different intensity.
Hmm?
It's completely different intensity.
Mm-hmm.
It's never. You don't really reach that. I feel. I mean, I went back for reserves and everything, but it was mostly training. Like you don't really reach that intensity. Yeah.
It's a different kind of fight or flight. It's not like a physical fight or flight anymore. It's a mental fight or flight. I mean, it can happen, but for the most part, it's deciding whether you should have your coffee at 7 a.m. or 7:15. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying life isn't hard. Like in certain respects, the army kind of covers your life, where you don't have to worry about financial things. It's not like you're making a lot of money at all, but you're on base. You do what they say. You get it done. You go home. You go back to base. You do it all over again. Things change. You have different experiences. In a sense, it's very dangerous, but you're kind of protected by them in a sense, where when you get into regular life, it's you versus you, you know, and there's a different kind of mind over matter experience. So I definitely think it prepared me for life in a sense, but it's very, very different.
How do you feel that you use any of that mindset like now? Because this is like an uphill battle what you're doing right now.
In what sense? An uphill battle in what sense?
Uphill battle to make it in content creating world. You know, like there's always, like you were talking, like it's a super saturated like industry, like we were talking about before.
I think everything is super saturated. I think with content creating, there's a lot of stigma about it because, especially with parents, right? Well, I don't have that problem. It's funny because I don't have parents. What did you say?
Neither do I. I live in a different country.
It's true. Okay. That's true. But I think with content creating, a lot of people don't see it as a job. They don't see it as something that can provide for a family, and to a large degree they're right. So I don't think it's smart to just quit everything and do it unless you come from a family with money or you've saved up enough where you don't mind doing it for a little while. But I think it's something that should start and stay a hobby and a passion. And if it creates financial value for you, if you can actually make money from it, terrific. But it should never be your main goal. You know, so if it's something that you strongly believe in, I think it's your duty to do it because it's something that you're going to potentially regret. And okay, if it doesn't go anywhere financially, fine, so be it. But if it's strictly your goal to make money from it, I don't think you should. If you don't become successful from it, you're going to be a lot more disappointed. And I think ironically you're not going to become successful from it because that's your main goal. You know, and I kind of said that earlier on, but I'm just reiterating that because I think it's such a true point. But I was trying to make another point, as to say where everything's saturated, so many people they're turned off by that, and they go, okay, well, so many other people do it. How am I going to do well at it? Well, if you have that attitude, you're never going to do it. There are 1,000,001 actors, 1,000,001 real estate agents, 1,000,001. I mean, certain businesses and industries aren't as saturated as others. But there are only a few people in any given business, industry, hobby that make it because they're the people who stuck it out. You know, and what were you saying?
No, I was just going to piggyback on what you said about sticking it out, because that's really all it is. It's literally just a time game. If you literally just survive the test of time, which is really just of course, it's a lot of components like quality of your content, quantity, like we're talking about. But it really comes down to, can you survive just outrun everybody else, or outrun your self-doubt, however you want to look at it. I feel, it's an interesting point you made.
Well, you also have to be willing to suck for a while. You also have to be okay with not being in the spotlight for a while. And you have to be open to the idea that you might just not be good at it. Like when people criticize you and say, you know, you're going to do a lot better with the friends who are direct with you and say, hey, dude, I'll be honest, I don't think that was a great episode, or I don't think you were very funny, or I don't think the quality of the content was good. If they're coming from a good place and you know that they're not just shitting on you because they don't feel good about themselves. You know, sometimes I feel like if you have relatively good intuition, you can tell if someone's just looking for the negative, because there's always going to be negatives. You could have always made the content a bit better. You could have the lighting could have been a bit better. The audio quality could have been better. There's always a could have been better, you know? But if it's good enough, I don't like to say good enough because it sounds lazy, but there's a truth to that. Meaning if the quality is good enough where people like it, obviously you should always want to improve, but that's a relative statement. You can never achieve a level of perfection. You can be better than everyone else. You can be at the top of the list, but there may be always someone who comes along and does it better. So the best you can do is just strive for greatness, do your best, and hope that it works. But so many people are turned off and see somebody at such a higher level of expertise than they are, and they go, oh, I'll never get there. You might not. That's the reality. The world's a tough place. People are like, yeah, well, I'll just make a couple of episodes and everyone's going to like it. It's going to be so good. It's like, no, asshole. It's a tough world, man. Like, people are going to comment on how crappy your stuff is, and they're going to call you an idiot, and they're going to tell you how funny you look. I mean, or people may end up loving you. No one will say a bad word. These things aren't known. You know what I mean? You just have to take a shot.
Right. But, I mean... Okay, if I was having a conversation with somebody about unknown things, like uncertainty, everyone's freaking out, like this whole like coronavirus. Of course, it's really bad, over 1 million cases now in the world, but like people are dying, but the uncertainty, everyone's freaking out about it. But I look at it as like, well, I just realized recently, it's like, well, everything's uncertain in the world. Like nothing is 100% gonna, like there's no like safe job, there's no like... nothing is like 100% in the world. So like this is just another thing we're not used to, but it's also not 100%. So even more so with content creating, you know, I don't know.
Oh, it's 100% true. Nothing's certain. That's why, to be honest, I get people who don't take any risks. I understand the thought process, because the thought process, it's very taxing on the mind to do something that's scary to you, to do something that's out of your comfort zone. It's a scary thing to do, and for most of the world population, they're like, okay, I have a job, I have a home, I have food. I'm not interested in all this headache in trying this new passion I have, or going after this hobby. It's too much work for me. If it goes badly, I'm gonna hate myself for doing it. But I think you'll hate yourself a lot more for not doing it. And then maybe even seeing someone who did something very similar to what you had in mind and becoming very successful at it, that's probably the shittiest feeling you can possibly have. It sucks when you watch someone do something that is almost identical to what you wanted to do. You see that often with inventions or with investment ideas. Like you see a company getting big and you're like, I'm not going to bother. It could go bad. Someone else comes along the next day, invests a couple of $1,000s, makes a killing from it, and you're like, oh. You got to grab opportunities. But then after that, okay, so you missed the opportunity. Go after the next one. There are going to be 1,000,001 opportunities. Take them. You miss 10 of them, there are going to be 300 more. You know?
A lot of people see it as like, this is the one chance. And after that, It's like, yep, I got nothing else because that was my one opportunity. Because they wanted it to be their one opportunity. But like,
yeah, because for most people, they want instant gratification.
Right. And that's the exact opposite of what we're going to be experiencing for at least a few, who knows how long.
Yeah, but it's like that with most things, man. Like, it's like that with most things that are worthwhile. You know, it's like that with anyone who has, even if you're looking at a job, even anyone who has a good, well-paying job didn't just roll over out of bed and get it unless they had a family. Some people do, honestly. Life is unfair. Some people have amazing connections. Their parents have a lot of money. Their parents know a lot of people. They come from generational wealth. It's not always about wealth, but sometimes a kid will he or she was born into a family where that father or mother has a connection where they can start off making $150,000 a year. Meanwhile, another person in a home isn't as fortunate as the other person, starts out with a $30,000 a year job. It sucks. It's unfair. You can either bitch about it or you can figure out a way, and you might never figure out that way. You might not. It is what it is. You might never get that job. But if you mope about it and you complain about it, that's a guarantee, a surefire guarantee that you will never get that. So it's just a matter of giving yourself a shot. It's like nothing, like you said, nothing's guaranteed. But I mean, I know I might die today. I might die tomorrow. It is what it is. So why in the world would I not do a said thing that, you know, it's just, I don't know. For me, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, what do you have to lose from it? You know what I mean?
Right. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what would you lose? An opportunity. That's literally what it is. Like, you'll lose an opportunity, you'll gain guilt. That's literally like regret.
Yeah.
That's like, that's like what. One thing I always think about, because I have a lot of people in my life who are like, just like, this is stupid. Don't do video stuff. Like, or do video stuff, but like work for somebody else, or you have to get a degree, which I'm getting anyway. But like, that's the one thing you need. You need to get a job. You need to do this. And I don't know. I always have this mindset, like this one saying in my head that I thought of. I'm like, I would rather work my ass off for myself than work my ass off for somebody else. And when you're working, and let's say you want to get a really high paying job, you have to work your ass off. So I feel like I would rather put my energy into myself and into something that I find to be valuable and important to me than to go to some startup that somebody else thought of, that was someone else's baby, and put my all into that. Like, that's not worth it for me. That's like the worst of two evils, one would say. But you know, I wouldn't look at me building up my own thing as an evil. But yeah, that's like a mindset you have and no one else has it. It's like it's just you, because the majority of people don't want to take that risk. Not
at all. When you work for anybody, you're putting your heart and soul into their dream.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
Yeah, people don't want to like accept that. That's really what it is, though. Anything. When I do for a living, I'm on paper self-employed, but I'm not working. It's not my company. So I am technically working towards building someone else's company. At the end of the day, I'm not working on salary. It's a very close friend of mine. It's an enjoyable job. It does well. I don't mind it. Is it the same as doing a podcast? No, because it doesn't allow me to be as creative and open as I am now. Now I'm free to do as I please. So it's a different level of enjoyment, but at the same time, it's not as secure because I know that that's working. Definitely have a lot to work on in that as well, because I'm still relatively new to it, but I've already developed a certainty where I still have a lot, like I said, a lot of work to put in to become better at it, but it's already proven. I've already seen results from it, whereas this, I haven't seen results from it yet. I'm noticing that I'm getting better at it, more confident with it. I'm excited to continue. I don't have any plan on quitting, but it's not as certain. The awesome part about it is if it does become a reality, I will be beyond thrilled that I had the balls to actually start it.
Yeah, that's like that like end result thought is like what keeps you going.
You have to always look at the bigger picture, 100%. If you see like that golden ticket, or you see that trophy at the top of the mountain and you're all the way at the bottom but you see it visible, because the reality is at the top of the mountain there are tons of trophies up there, and like yours is waiting. It might take forever. You might never get to the top of the mountain, and you might have to choose a different mountain, because there are millions of mountains around you. And you might, sometimes you have to know. I don't believe in quitting, but sometimes you have to know when to call it quits. Like, I do believe that's true. Sometimes like you're just in the wrong thing, meaning you might be relatively good at it, but there's another mountain that you can climb much faster. Or it's not even about climbing it faster, but you have, based on your skill set, that might be a better mountain to climb. But you're not going to know necessarily to choose that mountain if you haven't chosen to climb those other three, and maybe those other three haven't worked out to the best of your ability. It's very hard to decide that, though. It's very hard to realize whether I need to give that mountain more climbing, or I've climbed that mountain enough, and I noticed there might be a better mountain to climb. And life's short, but at the same time, it's also long as well. Meaning it's a relative statement. It's all a matter of perception. So if I climb that mountain, do I continue or do I not? And that's if you start asking too many people whether you should continue climbing that mountain, it'll frustrate the shit out of you, because you'll never really know. You have to make that decision for yourself at the end of the day anyway. And people who just rely on someone else to make the decision for them, they'll never end up getting to that point. They'll never end up getting to the top of the mountain, because they allowed someone else to make the decision for them. So it's ultimately up to you. And there's no right or wrong answer. That's the scary part about it. You never know whether it was right to quit on that and do something else, or if you should have stuck that out for another 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Like you don't know. You have to trust your gut. You have to trust your intuition. You have to trust your heart as to whether you continue on a specific path or not. Because there is no right answer.
But do you think that if you were to set your own like artificial goal, meaning when I was personal training and I was thinking about if I should stop or not with personal training, and I kept in my head I was I can't quit, I have to keep going. And I went to move over to the video. I don't know, I felt like I set myself an artificial goal where I was if I get to this amount of clients or this amount of following, or I get a full year in and I'll see how I go and how I like it. And then I was like, okay, I think that's enough. So if you do all you can and you feel like you've done all you can and you still don't like it, then I think it's okay. Then in my opinion, I think it's okay to consider quitting, because you're just saving yourself from years of wasting time and energy and money, and I don't know. What do you think?
Right, but my question is, how do you make that conscious decision? At what point do you know to call it quits? Meaning, like I said before, you might quit and realize it was the best decision you made, or you might quit and realize it was the worst decision you made. There's no surefire way to know. I think the best way to know is, I don't know about the best way to know, but something that people who end up doing well at any given thing is that they're conscious of what they're not doing right and what they need to start doing, instead of making the exact same mistake over and over and over and over and over. If you're consistent but you're not working smart, you can spend 10 years doing something that you could have spent a year doing, and you could have done well in a year, but you spend 10 years doing the same damn thing over and over and over. And you're frustrated because it isn't going anywhere, but you aren't realizing, or maybe you aren't taking other people's opinions into it. It is good to take other people's opinions into account. It's just a question of also taking the right opinions into account. And sometimes the closest people to you will give you the worst advice. Sometimes a person on the street might give you this eye-opening, mind-blowing advice where you're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Yeah. You should really wear a different shirt. You should really stand a certain way. And it could be the smallest piece of advice, the advice do you think makes no difference whatsoever, but it could make all the difference? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. I do think it's important to take other people's advice. I think, like with everything, moderation is so important. Like I think working extremely hard is vital too, but it's also knowing when to not overdo something also. You know, because I think anyone who's exceptionally good at something has to be to, and I'm kind of repeating this. I'm not by far not the first person to say this. You have to be a bit crazy about any given thing you're doing. Like you have to be over the top. Anyone who's been either the best or close to the best at something was a little bit of a nut about or a lot of bit of a nut about what they were doing. They talk about it all day. It's all they think about. It's all, you know, whether you're a bodybuilder, fighter, athlete, they are obsessed, you know? So to a degree, you have to have an obsession for it, I think. So that's not moderation at all. That's the opposite. But when it comes to moderation, I think it's about, for instance, a good example I think of moderation is knowing how to ask for advice, knowing how to ask for an outside perspective, like asking a friend how they think you're doing, but then knowing how to tune out some people. Meaning if you have you might have a parent who says, that's a terrible idea, you should quit right now, it's not worth it, you should just get a job, stop with this whole video editing, what do you think you are? Like it's unrealistic, it's far-fetched, you're not going to do well. Some people go, you're right, Ma, it's not going to work. And then some people say, okay, well, why does the person feel that way? Maybe ask the parent, why don't you think I'll do well? And then you can get a better answer. Maybe the person will I don't think you're going to do well because you have so many other distractions. I don't think you're going to do well because you're not disciplined enough. Okay. So they don't think I'm not going to do well per se. They just don't think I'm going to do well because of A, B, and C. So maybe if I can get better at A, B, and C, I'll be more fit to do well at that given thing. You get what I'm saying? As opposed to just listening to not going to do well and then assuming, okay, well, my parent knows me better than anyone. They say I'm not going to do well. They know I'm not going to do well. That's it. I'm done. Versus actually listening to a deeper reasoning and saying, okay, well, maybe they have a point. Maybe in the past I've always been saying I'm going to do things and I keep failing at these things or not continuing to do them. So that family member or that friend assumes I'm not going to do well at this as well. But if you prove them wrong and you say, okay, well, you start to acknowledge that they have a point, an honest point. In the beginning, you're offended. Oh, you think I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. No, maybe they're making a very valid point. Maybe you constantly talk about the shit you're going to do and you constantly quit at any given thing you do. People are naturally going to assume that you're going to do the same thing now. But if you start to, today, at this hour, stop with the stupidity or the procrastination, or you talk something up to the degree where you think you're going to do it and you psych yourself up, but then you realize, hey, I'm not cut out for that. And you kind of you quit the whole thing altogether. So that's where I also believe that it's sometimes good to not talk so much about something you're planning and then just quietly do it on the sidelines. So when it does become a thing, everyone's like, holy shit, when did they do that? You know? Or you go from just working an everyday job and all of a sudden you send a friend some video you made and it's fantastic. And they're like, whoa, they never told me about this. And your friend might even be like, hey, why didn't you tell me? And you have that smirk on your face like, I purposely didn't tell you, you know?
That's funny. Yeah, I was also, you got me thinking, you, right now, like obviously one of the biggest things with like starting out, like content creating is gear. Like everyone's all about the gear, right? Like I'm about the cameras, you're about the cameras and the audio. Do you think that investing in gear will keep you will keep you motivated because I invested in it, I can't not use it now? Or do you think it's a waste because you should see how it goes as you move on?
I don't think I can give you the right answer for that. I think it depends on the person. Meaning if you're the kind of person if you're very self-motivated, I don't think having the best equipment in the world is going to make a difference because you're already set on a mission and you're going to make it happen regardless. If you have that kind of mindset. But if you're somebody that isn't so self-motivated and you need a push, it might be good to spend a nice amount of money on great equipment because then you can say to yourself, well, damn, I already bought all this stuff. I better do something with it. And it also might make you feel more professional. If you bought a bunch of crappy cameras and crappy equipment, you're maybe less inclined where you feel like, look at all these big podcasters. They have state-of-the-art stuff. I have crappy stuff. It's the same way. It's the same idea. Getting very dressed up to a job or an interview, when you have either very nice clothing or very nice equipment, you'll put yourself into that professional state of being where you're like, I am that person. So I think it's a matter of perspective. I don't think there's a right answer. I think you have to make that conscious decision for yourself as to what will help you. And I think getting an opinion from somebody could help, but I think it really is it's something that you have to answer for yourself. So I don't think I can give you that answer. Like my equipment, for instance, it's good equipment. My mics aren't that great. They're decent, but they're not amazing. I think it's more important. I think the content's a lot more important. I think as long as it sounds and looks good, you're okay. Will people judge you for not having the best equipment or the best video quality? Yeah, you're going to get naysayers no matter what you do. You're always going to have haters who are going to... I love saying haters, though. It's always like, you're always going to have haters, bro. You're going to have people knocking you down. But what's most important is that you get back up on that horse. Don't listen to the haters. You're always gonna have people doing that, though. You can't, that's why a lot of people also don't continue doing something. Because they're always you're just another one of those assholes making a podcast. You're just another one of those assholes making a video. Who do you think you are, dude? You're not going to do anything. You're going to suck. You're just another one of those stand-up comedians. But then when your friend sees that you continue doing it and it worked out for you, they go, oh, shit. Can I get involved? Can I be on your show? Can I be a partner? They want to slide in and not acknowledge all the work you put in and just hope that they can have a seat next to you. And a lot of people are like that. Sometimes the people who are closest to you will pull things like that. They're not even being malicious. They don't want to admit that they were the ones doubting you from the get-go. They were sometimes quietly doubting you. They were supporting you on the outside, but on the inside they were hoping you would fail. I don't like to admit that because it's some people are like, oh, why do you have such a negative feeling about people? It's just, a lot, because everyone has dreams, man. There isn't a single person on this planet that doesn't have a thing that they wish they could do, or a person or be a person they wish they could be. It's just a matter of doing it or not doing it. And I think most people aren't. Like I said, it sounds like I feel like I'm preaching because I'm not in the position to start preaching. I do think I have the ability to. I think I'm credible to make certain statements. I think I've come a long way, but at the same time, I'm a 26-year-old. I'm still very young, and I have a ton to learn. But so does everyone, man. You know what I mean? If there's a 50-year-old listening to this and they go, what do you know, you little shit? It's like, okay, you're right to a certain degree. You're right. You're making a valid point. But I'm sure there are a lot of things that I know that you don't, and you're double my age. So age isn't always a thing. Sometimes some people are open to learning new things and aren't as stubborn as other people. And they'll come a lot further, even at a younger age, than a person much older than them, because they're willing to take criticism. They're willing to criticize themselves. They're willing to continuously make mistakes until they figured it out. So I don't think being young is not a good reason. Meaning, I don't think if you're young, you should be afraid to go and do something or make certain statements or give certain advice because you're not old enough. Maturity often does come with age, but it isn't always the determining factor. So I don't think you should just shut yourself out because you're young and don't know enough, so to speak.
Right. It's funny you said age and how it doesn't really matter how old you are. It matters how mature you are, because as you get older, you become more and more set in your ways. So if you're young and you're just stubborn and don't want to listen to anybody, you're just going to become more and more stubborn and don't want to listen to anybody. So you're just digging yourself deeper into that hole.
Right, dude. It compounds like everything else. Things compound. Technology compounds. Understanding compounds. Bad habits everything compounds. The more you do any given thing, the more you generally do any given thing. You know what I mean? And it doesn't always... and the funny thing is, it's usually the bad traits that are easier to compound. Laziness compound. Meaning, a good thing, it's harder to accomplish a good thing. Meaning, when I say a good thing, a thing that's good for you, it's much harder to become good at a good thing versus becoming good at a bad thing. Because usually those things are easy. Doing drugs, easy. You find a dealer, gives you drugs, you do them more and more and more. There you go. You're lazy, you continue to be lazy, you get lazier and lazier and lazier. So this is really my example. So I think that's the beauty of life, though. The beauty of life is that the good, worthwhile things are hard to achieve, and that makes them those good, worthwhile things because they're rare. They're not easy to they're not easy to get. Like all the things we've been talking about in like the last hour and a half, they're not new concepts. They're things that like 1.5 million people discuss. I'm just adding my perspective to it.
As you should, as you have the right to.
Right. And there's so many things that people are going to repeat. Like I've heard what I'm saying plenty of times. It's not like I got all these ideas from me. I think I've realized them, but it's all a matter of internalizing it. You know, so many people hear these millionaires, these entrepreneurs say these things, but they don't consider themselves. They don't apply these things to themselves because they're like, oh well, that guy's rich already, he's successful already. They disconnect themselves from that person, but they don't give themselves the credit as to, okay, well that guy is there already. You might get there, you might not get there. But if you automatically put yourself in a box where you will never get there, you sure as hell won't. Like I remember Will Smith had this he quoted it. I forgot who said this. What did he say? Well, who was it? Socrates or one of these big peeps, and he basically said, let me try to remember. I feel like most people listening to this are already like thinking about what I'm going to say because but it's people who say they do and people who say they don't, or people who say they will or people who say they won't are both usually right. You know what I'm saying? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to be that person. You're a hell of a lot more likely to be that person if you tell yourself every day you're going to be that person versus not. I think it also works that way with happiness and like mental happiness. Like if you constantly wake up in the morning and tell yourself you're happy, even when you're having a shitty day and you're really genuinely not so happy today, but if you constantly when someone asks how you're feeling or, oh, how's it going, man? What's going on? You say, oh, everything's good. Everything's great. Things are always not going to be great. You're going to have aspects of your life that aren't awesome, that you want better. But it's all a matter of having a positive attitude at the end of the day. You know, these are all redundant things, though. These are things like everyone knows, but like a lot of people don't actually take into account. And I honestly think I have I think I'm at a good point in my life in that regard. I think I get that. Like, I think I understand that I have so much more than a lot of other people, and it's all a matter of how I look at life. It's all a matter of attitude, you know? So it all ties into this, and I think it ties into the virus right now. Where, like, I don't have a family, I don't have kids, I don't have a wife, you know? I have a girlfriend now, and I care about her, and I want to make sure she's happy. Obviously, I mean, not obviously, but I do believe that you have to be happy for you, and not expect happiness to come from another person. So some people are unhappy and they get into a relationship and they hope that that'll bring them happiness, which I think is skewed. Because I think if you're not happy from the get-go, I think another person can bring you more happiness. I think they can help you become a happier person. But I don't think you should search for happiness in someone else. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think if you can't find your own happiness and can't appreciate what you have before you meet that other person, you'll never truly have that, because what if that person leaves? What if you break up with them? What if you're just not with them anymore? That person now took all your happiness because you expected them to give it to you. Right? Does that make sense? So I think with the virus now, I don't want to take people's valid, some people really have no money, they have families, they really are in bad situations, and I don't want to discredit that because it really is hard. I'm not someone who's going to say, well, you got to do this and you got to do that. No, I genuinely feel for them. I don't understand what they're going through, and I'm sure it sucks. Some people really are having a terrible time right now, and I wish them the best. For me, I just don't have that. I really don't have much to complain about. I have enough money to hold me over for a while. I'm in a good place. I live in a nice neighborhood. I have a nice apartment. I have good friends, whether there's, my friends from New York or my friends in Florida. I have it good right now. So some people in my position might be complaining, but I don't see any good reason to do that. So now with the virus, there are certain things I can control. There are certain things I can't. So the things I can't control, I'm just relaxing and waiting till the whole thing blows over. Things I can't control are doing a podcast with you, and many other things. So as much as the virus is difficult, I think it also gives us a lot to learn. Like I think it gives us a lot of perspective where we can now kind of sit back, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, and think about the things that we should start doing or shouldn't do. Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, when you're talking about before how you tell yourself, like, I am going to do this. You mentioned that before. Remember you mentioned that? But how you were saying how if you tell yourself that you're like, I will do it, then you will do it, right? So you don't give yourself another option. Like, you don't have an out. You have to do that. So I feel like, I don't know. I'm always like trying to figure out like where's the balance with that, because I do like when it comes to college, I do want to go to college to get a degree, but I'm only getting a degree so that I can have a fallback if I ever need to get a job somewhere. Basically, if I ever have that, like if I have that option to not be successful in whatever I want to do here, then like I'm not gonna be 100% in. Like I'm gonna be 99 or 98% in, and 2% I'm like, okay, if I ever need to, I'll just always fall back on a job, like. So like you're not giving yourself an out, like how you were saying before. You say, I'm going to do this and no other option. So like that's kind of what I was getting from what you were saying. And I don't know. I feel like I'm very excited about all this. I'm very excited to like start this thing, and I feel like you're very excited also to start it and to continue and push harder, because that's your mindset also, is to push. And I don't know what's your perspective on that. I'm giving yourself an out. Because like one of my favorite quotes is from the director Werner Herzog. He's like a very famous director, and I'm gonna misquote him, but he said, "Never have a plan B, because people with a plan B will invariably fall back on them. Because you're always gonna be like, oh, plan A didn't work. I guess I'll have a plan B. But if you don't have a plan B and you always only just have a plan A, it has to work. Otherwise, like either you win or you die trying. Like those are the two outcomes."
I hear that, but I also think it's easy to say that when you've already... Meaning, like, here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't relate to these people because it's very easy to preach when you've already become successful. You become a successful content creator, you can now get on this podium and talk about how you did that and how other people should follow suit. But sometimes people, they don't have the same brain as you do. They don't have the same motivation as you do. So they find it very hard to relate to you, and they say, well, how do I not have a plan B? If I don't have a plan B and this doesn't work, I'm screwed. So I don't think having a plan B is a bad thing. I just think it's vital that you try your best to succeed at plan A before you jump to plan B. I think it's good to have a fallback option. I think having a degree is good. I don't know if I'll ever use my degree, but I think it's good to have it just in case. But I think what I took from the quote that you made of this of what was his name, Werner Herzog? Yeah. So what I take from it is to try your absolute best at the plan that you believe in first, because the plan B is probably a plan that you aren't very interested in. So I think having a plan B where you have another job, especially if you have a family, I think having a plan B is not having a plan B could be dangerous. Because unless you're insanely driven, most people aren't insanely driven, and you don't have that fallback option, you might find yourself in a very dangerous situation. I could be wrong. I mean, I don't think it's a matter of right or wrong. I think it's a matter of perspective. But there are people that argue with me and be like, no, you have to have one plan and stick to it and make it happen, and you die trying. It sounds awesome. It doesn't sound wrong. I don't know if it's something that can work for everyone.
Right. No, I understand. I wanted your opinion on that. I found it a very interesting thought that I tend to have a lot when it comes to this stuff.
Well, at the end of the day, I think you should go all in as far as what you're doing. Don't look at it as something that you're just gonna wake up and do here and there. I don't think you are. It seems like you're very serious about it. I know for me, I can work harder at the podcast for sure. I sometimes analyze it and I go, okay, well, am I putting enough emphasis into it? Am I putting enough effort into it? Definitely not. There's a lot more work I can do. but I'm taking a pace. Like I'm taking my pace. Like I've had different opinions. Like I had a few people giving me advice on what I should do. And part of my like stubborn personality and my pridefulness was like, who the hell are you to give me advice on it? Like, what have you done that's so far-fetched? You just got a degree and a job, and like, you just like, who are you to preach to me, you know? And then but I wasn't upset about it, you know, because it depends on the person. I'm also not going to ask advice from a person that I don't think cares to give it to me. I'm not going to ask a friend to give me the advice if they're just trying to tell me what to do, but they don't really care about my success. But if I'm asking a friend that I think genuinely wants to see me do well, I'm much more open, like I said before. I'm much more open to their criticism. I was about to make a point. I forgot the point though. Totally forgot what I was going to say. I mean, well, long story short, I was just going into a long, really talking a lot about a lot of similar concepts. So we're kind of going around in circles, I think, about really just having an idea and sticking to it, and not letting too much outside noise cloud your judgment. But there's also there's a lot of uncertainty. I think that's really the meat and potatoes of the conversation, is that there's always going to be self-doubt. And you can't look at other people who've made it and just assume that you're not going to get there. There's always uncertainty. Like people go, oh, well, that person has all the answers. No one has all the answers. Like no one has all the answers. You just have to trust in yourself, and that's it. And what happens, happens. And that's what kind of makes life, that's what kind of gives me that comfortability. Like, I don't know, is that a word? Yeah, it sounds like, I've heard people use it. I don't think it's a word. But anyway, it gives me that reassurance and that comfort where I know that since things are uncertain, you just give it your best. If you go to a psychic and they tell you you're going to do amazing, you're going to do, exceptionally well at something, they might be right. But like, if you're going to trust someone else when they say you're going to do very well, you're kind of stupid. Meaning it's nice to have them hype you up. If someone you know very well is like, dude, I know you're going to kill it at video editing. I know it. You should take that you should really take it internally and say, oh, wow, that's awesome. Thank you, man. And allow it to build you up. But don't be naive to the fact that, well, Sam said it. It must be true. I'm going to do it. You have to believe it yourself, and long story short, I mean, this is all I think we've discussed. So I'm looking forward to more of your videos. I cracked up at the one you just did with Kayla, so I hope to see more. I'm hoping we can do another episode together in the future, maybe even one in person. And I'm down to do videos with you in person as well. So hopefully, when and if, I'm definitely gonna make a trip down to Israel. Hopefully in the near future, we'll hopefully do some stuff together. And dude, thank you so much for joining me. This has been another episode of Soothing Semantics. Ez, thanks for coming onto the show, man. It's been a great conversation. And I hope people got something new from what we talked about, because a lot of things we talked about, I think, were pretty obvious things, or pretty, very talked about things. So that is it, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I really it was really fun, and it was really nice to just talk to you. Like, I really we have some great conversations. So
yeah, for sure. This was a pretty serious conversation. So in the future, I'm sure we'll have a lot of dumber, lighter conversation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you gotta have those lightheaded, dumb conversations, obviously.
Yeah, we did so much of that in the Army, so yeah. Tune in, dudes. There's gonna be more. Dudes and dudettes, there's gonna be more. Tune in. It has been real. Ez, thanks so much for coming, dude. Until next time.
Thanks so much, bro.
Peace, man.